board. So thanks so much for being here today. We're on Ignite session 11, which the title is Follow Up with Leads. And believe it or not, you guys are, let me go ahead and let me share the actual presentation for Ignite so that you're looking at that as well. Believe it or not, you are halfway through the Ignite content. And I just wanted to point out, let's put this in slideshow mode. Hi, good morning. Morning. Let's see. Okay, great. I just wanted to point out, when you look at the content for Ignite, it's in 4 sections. The first section, the first 4 classes were the real estate expert. And that was talking about what it means to be a real estate agent, and kind of getting that knowledge in your head, and creating what your value proposition is. And then you see 2 whole sections on lead generation and lead follow-up, which is really half the content is on lead generation and lead follow-up. And then you have sessions on transactions, working with buyers and sellers, negotiating, getting to the close, that sort of thing. So right now we're in the 3rd section, which is the lead follow-up section. And there's 4 classes: keep every lead, follow up with leads, which is today, strengthen relationships, and qualify potential buyers and sellers. So I guess I can't stress enough how important these 2 sections are: lead generation and lead follow-up. Frankly, if you don't focus on these 2 things as the core of being a professional real estate agent, you'll never get to the transaction. You have to have leads, you have to follow up with them in order to actually have clients, right? It's so basic, but it's also so important. And you'll see behind me on the board that I wrote down some key concepts for today. I like to point these out. We talk a lot about lead generation and lead follow-up, but lead conversion and lead cultivation are also super important. And there are 4 different terms, but they work together all the time. And so we're going to spend some time talking about that today, what all of that means. I know as a student of real estate, I've been in the real estate profession for over 20 years. And I teach on lead generation and lead follow-up all the time. It's 2 of my favorite topics to teach on. It took me a while even to realize that lead conversion and lead cultivation aren't necessarily the same thing. And that all 4 of these things are really important to understand separately and then also combined. So I just wanted to point that out for you today. And I also wanted to point out again that you are about halfway through our Ignite content. And I wanted to ask, for those of you that have really been embracing this class and been showing up to as many classes as you possibly can, or watching the recordings, what have been the ahas so far? What has stood out? Is there any one special thing that you've learned that you hadn't thought about before? Anything?
Lead generation being a contact sport.
Lead generation being a contact sport. I love that. And I love that you say that because I know you like sports. And so if you can think about lead generation in a way that makes it more fun for you, it's not going to feel so daunting. It's just going to become sort of second nature, second skin. You're out there and you're doing the things you love to do. Like Melinda, I know you love to hike. I know you love sports. I know there's certain committees that you're involved in the community. And when you can go out and do the things you love to do in your life, and then on a side note, people are realizing you're a realtor and you start developing relationships around that, the 2 can get combined. And that's where the context sport part comes in play, right? So that's good. I love that. Rena, anything that you would add that has been part of what you've learned so far in the series?
Nothing comes to mind straight. I mean, I'm also working on the side here, so I'm not concentrating.
No worries. I get that, no worries. And as we go through today and what I'm going to talk about today, I'm also going to ask you again if there's any ahas that are coming up for you. So today we're going to talk about lead conversion, learning what lead conversion is, just really breaking it down in simplistic form. How to convert a lead to an appointment, how to improve your conversion rate, and then we're going to talk about ahas around that. So pretty straightforward 3 concepts that we're going to be covering today. And I'm really doing my best to follow along on your student handouts. You're in section 11. And so Melinda, I know you've got it right there in front of you. You're in section 11. If I seem to get off track or if I seem to miss something, please let me know and we'll make sure that we cover what's in your handout. And I've got it open in front of me as well. All right. So to start out, we're going to talk about learning what lead conversion is. Here's a quote from Gary Keller. The effort you give to converting leads must match the effort you give to generating them. The effort that you give to converting leads must match the effort. And this is on 11.3. It's right there in that little box for you. Must match the effort you give to generating them. When you hear that quote, what does that mean to you?
Means I'm not giving converting leads enough effort.
You're not giving converting leads enough effort. The effort you give to converting leads must match the effort you give to generating them.
Probably spending too much time generating and not enough time to convert.
Okay. I'm just going to read something from the instructor part of this. It says, after lead generation, lead conversion is the most business critical activity you need to master. If you don't have appointments, you won't have buyer or seller agreements. And without agreements, you cannot have any sales contracts. And without any sales contracts, what also do you not have?
Money.
Money. Yeah, money. You don't make any money. So it really builds, like I said, when I went back and I was showing these 4 sections, in order for us to even get to the transaction section of Ignite, which is section 4, you've got to have lead generation and then lead follow-up. I always say, what's the point in generating a lead if you're not going to follow up with it? It's madness. Why would you be in this profession and be out there every day, whether you're door knocking or calling your sphere of influence or doing open houses or some of the other lead levers that you have in order to generate leads, if you didn't in turn, after you've spent all that work generating a lead, like you said, the effort that you give to generating them, if you're not using that same amount of effort to convert. And does you guys get what it means to convert a lead? Does that make sense to you? You get what that means? What does it mean to convert a lead?
Contact them, find out what they need, and support them to move them into to a client status.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They convert into being a client. They're actually someone that you're going to work with as a buyer or a seller. And we always talk about investors too. Investors are either buyers or sellers. So at the core, you're converting a lead into a client who is a buyer or seller. So here's what it says in the instructor part. At its core, lead generation is when you turn activities, which are usually prospecting and marketing, into leads. Lead conversion happens after the lead is captured and is part of lead follow-up. So you see, I've got all these things here: lead generation, lead follow-up, lead conversion, lead cultivation. We're going to talk about cultivation a little later. Okay, so let me read it again. At its core, lead generation is when you turn activities, which are prospecting and marketing, into leads. Lead conversion happens after the lead is captured and is part of lead follow-up. It is unique because these are the activities that turn leads into appointments with the end goal of a transaction. So that's the, textbook definition of what we're talking about today. And so, like I said, I always say, what's the point? So when you look at this quote, the effort you give to converting leads must match the effort you give to generating them. I always say, what's the point in generating a lead if you're not going to follow up with it? Why do you think both activities deserve the same amount of time?
I think it's just important to keep in mind that we spend a lot of time trying to get more people into the funnel, and then we don't nurture the ones that are in there in order to turn them into clients.
Yeah.
And
It's
you're
just as
spending,
important.
yeah, you're usually spending money to get leads or time, and without
Yeah.
nurturing them into a client, you're kind of spinning your wheels for no reason.
Absolutely. And time is money, right? You're spending money or time. Time is money also. So it's just as important you spend a lot of effort to create the lead or generate the lead, and you want to not have it stop there. You want it to become an actual client. So it's just as important. Okay, so we're going back to this, the typical diagram that you've been seeing a lot lately of in Ignite. They really want you to get this. You're talking about capturing the lead as number one, and then going into connecting, actually building some sort of professional relationship, which also on the side has some personal relationship in it, and then going to close. So capture, connect, close, and then cultivation is what we're going to talk about, because not every single person that you capture and connect with is ready to close right away. So you need to cultivate them so that when they are ready to transact with you, they're still thinking about you and they haven't moved on to another realtor. So we're going to spend some time talking about number 4, which is cultivation. Does that make sense though? At its core, in the simplicity of it, capture, connect, close, and some of them aren't quite ready, so we cultivate them. Does that make sense? And you guys, that's 11.3 in your handouts. All right. So I'm going to read this part. And again, I wrote a bunch of stuff up here. I also wrote the law of emotional proximity here. And let me make sure you guys can see it. It looks like my thing has turned a little bit. Did I go the right way with that,
Yes,
Melinda? I did. Can you guys see it? Great. Okay. I wrote the law of emotional proximity here as well. And then I wrote E to P. Do you know what E to P means? We talk about it a lot at Keller Williams. Do you know what? It's one of your 6 personal perspectives. Do you know what E to P means? It means to go from entrepreneurial to purposeful. Okay, entrepreneurial to purposeful. And to me, what we're really working on through Ignite, as well as many of the other classes that we teach at KW, is we're working on helping you become a business owner in real estate. There's lots of real estate agents out there that wing it, that just try the next thing they hear about, the next shiny object, but they're not actually creating smart business practices to be a smart business owner. And that's what we want to help you become, or help you continue to be, with our classes at KW. Every single real estate agent is a business owner, and we want to help you be a smart business owner. So we want you to not just be entrepreneurial, we want you to be purposeful in what you're doing. So we want you to go from E to P. Most real estate agents out there are entrepreneurial in spirit. And we want you to go from that spirit of being entrepreneurial to a purposeful business plan, okay? So, so the other thing I say about that is we want you to be a business owner versus a rookie or a novice, which means there are some skills that you want to master. And we talk about mastery being 10,000 hours. So all of these things are my key points today that we're going to keep talking about. So when you think about capture, connect, close, and cultivate, I want you to think about this. Converting a lead to an appointment is a process that can happen quickly, although in some cases it happens slowly. The book Shift tells us that consistently getting every possible appointment from the leads you generate isn't complicated, but it does require preparation, practice, and purposeful action. Okay. All right. So the next slide talks about possible, probable, and profitable. You have possible business. It's always possible. There's always people out there that are thinking about buying or selling. So there are possible business. Then there's probable business. And that's the people that you get in front of you. And then there's profitable business, which is when you level up your skills and get very purposeful at what you're doing, so that you have consistent income coming in and it's more profitable. So again, when you think about these terms, possible, then probable, then profitable, you're really thinking about going from E to P. So, which from entrepreneurial to purposeful. After lead generation, lead conversion is the most business critical activity you must master. It is where the possible business that comes from lead generating activities can turn into probable business and ultimately profitable business. Say that 5 times fast. Does that make sense? Any thoughts around that so far? Any ahas? I want to make sure I'm staying with your thing. Okay. So let's break it down even more. We just talked about, the first part we talked about was learning lead conversion. So it's sort of in its basic textbook form, we talked about what lead conversion is. Now we're going to talk about how to convert a lead to an appointment. So from the definition part to the practice part, okay? So back to capture. What is capture? Just at its core, when you guys think about capture, what does that mean? Hi, Andon.
Howdy.
What does capture mean?
Getting the critical pieces of information from the potential client so that you have some way of following up with them.
Boom. Very good. And if you can read it on page 11.4, almost exactly what you said, read what capture means right there. The top part, that top paragraph.
Collecting the minimum amount of valid contact information for a potential buyer or seller. This should include their names and a way to get a hold of them, such as email and a phone number.
It's basic, right? But
I love even more the 3 questions below.
Yeah, which we're going to talk about here. It's basic, but so I want you guys to think about this. I want you to think about all the professionals that you're in contact with in your daily life. I usually go with mechanic, your doctor, your dentist. There's tons of professionals that you have a continual relationship with. And let's just go with mechanic. If you drop your car off somewhere for someone to fix a tire or whatever on your car, they have to capture some basic information to be able to get a hold of you and let you know when your car's done, right? And typically you might get some follow-up from them. If they're running a smart business, you might get some, once you've given them information, you might get some emails from them, or you might get postcards in the mail with a coupon and that sort of thing, right? Mm-hmm. Just basic. I mean, we had some work done on our furnace this year, and we were immediately put into that particular HVAC company's database. We get emails from them. We get stuff in the mail from them. They follow up with us, right? So there's a business right there. In real estate, you're a business too. It's the same thing. In order for you to stay in touch with people, you have to capture basic information. So when you look at this page 11.4 in your student handout, if I were to, Melinda, you were saying you love the bullet points. Mm-hmm. This is just basic. Let's just say we're at an open house. I always like to pick open house because that is one of the activities you do as a real estate agent, where people are walking in as an interested buyer or seller, okay? And they're interviewing you for the job of becoming their real estate agent. You're getting interviewed in an open house, believe it or not, you are. So if you were at an open house and you were working on building a relationship with people that are there, hi Joel, and you wanted to stay in touch with them, here's some great questions you can ask. If I were to need to contact you, what would the number be that I would call you? So you're building rapport. They're asking you questions. Might be asking you questions about another house in the neighborhood. Hey, this other one just sold recently. Do you have any information about that? And you could simply say to them, "That's a great question. I want to follow up with you on that. In order for me to follow up, what phone number should I call you so I can give you that information? And if I could send you a report on it, what email address would I send that to? Now with phone number one, I usually like to follow up with that and say, when I say to them, what phone number should I use to call you to give you that information? And then I'll help them with the phone number. I'll say 541 and wait for them to finish with the 7 digits. And they'll either say they'll finish or they'll say, no, sorry, I'm 503 or whatever. And they'll help you with the area code on it. So the questions on here are, if I were to need to contact you, what number would that be? If I found out exactly what you're looking for, how would I contact you? If I found out that information you are wanting, how would I get it to you? Every single business does this. You're not any different from your hairdresser, your mechanic, your doctor, your dentist. We could keep going on with other businesses that capture information. You are a business, so act like a business owner and give people information. Okay, so the question is, what if they don't want to give me information? Move on. If they don't want to give you information so that you can work for them with them in a professional way, move on. Work with the people who want to give you information. Obviously, there's some skill in how you ask questions. And if people say, well, I'm not comfortable giving you that information, you can just explain, hey, as a real estate agent, this is the way I stay in touch with people so that I can give you the information that you need. It's part of my business. And I need to have information so that I can stay in touch with you. And if they're still not willing, then they're really not that interested, or they've got another agent they're working with or something. But if they're wanting your professional services, they're going to interact with you and give you some information. It's a give and take. If they want something from you, they have to give something to you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So don't worry about that. If people are, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you that information, move on. Okay. If when you're ready to, here's my card or whatever, and I'd be happy to work with you. And in order for me to stay in touch, I need to have a little bit of information. The better you build rapport, the more comfortable people are going to be around that. And again, that's entrepreneurial to purposeful. It's practicing your skills so that you are feeling more confident in building rapport. So on this page, it asks you, let me see if I'm supposed to move. No, right here. We're still in Convert. It asks you on page 11.4, how are you currently capturing leads? What information are you collecting? What are your current lead categories or tags? And what can you do to improve your current capture system? So they're really important questions. When you think of the first one, how are you currently capturing leads? Those are your lead levers. So what are some lead levers out there? Guys,
Open house.
Open houses, we just talked about. What else?
Referrals.
Referrals from, where do the referrals come from?
Other agents and past clients.
And your past clients are in your
Database.
sphere of influence.
Okay.
So sphere of influence, every single person in your sphere of influence is not necessarily a lead, right? But they could become one. So one of the ways that we capture leads is through our sphere of influence in order to work with people in our sphere who would become buyers or sellers or refer us to other people that they know that would become buyers or sellers. So sphere of influence, referrals, repeat clients, open houses, door knocking, farming. Some people do cold calling, some networking events, social media. That's another way. So what are the ways that you are capturing leads? Are you using social media to capture leads? Are you using network events to capture leads? Any others? Like, those are big ones that I remember.
The organizations like you were talking about that I participate
Yeah,
in.
networking events. Networking events. Being a real estate agent in Silicon Valley for many, many years, the word networking had a totally different connotation. It was a high-tech term when networking was more about what you did, with technology and engineering. So I always had to explain networking or networking events where you actually not fiddle with an engineering plan, but meet people. Okay, next question. What information are you collecting? When I taught my class, I think I was here 2 weeks ago, I said there were 5 basic things that I want to collect on every single person. Do you guys remember what they were?
phone number, email, address,
First and last name.
personal.
It's really helpful to have a last name too. Phone number, email. What else? There's 3 of them. First and last name, phone number, email. If I were going to send you something in the mail, if I were going to send some business cards to you, what address would I send it to?
Street address.
Mailing address. And then the 5th one for me, some people stop at 4. The 5th one for me is social media connections. Typically, we're connected on social media and 1 or 2 or more platforms. And so that's a great way to stay connected, is to, Facebook friend people or whatever other social media platforms you're on. So I like that 5th one too. And then more deeply, you could go into birthdays and anniversaries and what jobs do they have and how many kids do they have, all that, deeper information. But the basic 5, first and last name, mailing address, phone number, email address, social media connections. Okay, so the first question was, how are you currently capturing leads? And again, this is 11.4 in your handout. Second question, what information are you collecting? The 5 basics. What are your current lead categories and tags? What would be the 3 basic lead categories?
Buyer, seller.
Buyer, seller,
So I,
investor.
okay.
Sometimes we make that its own category. Again, investors are buyers and sellers, so you don't have to make it a 3rd category. Buyer, seller, those are the most basic tags. Are there any other tags that you guys use? What? Like what?
0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. In your pipeline report, you might put down how active are they? Are they 0 to 3 months out? Are they 3 to 6 months out? Are they 6+ months out, 2+ years out? That sort of thing. If they just bought a house, they might be in the 2+ year category. You never know.
Vendor tag and an agent tag.
Yeah, vendor tag, agent tag. I had sphere of influence tag. I had business owner tag. I had my neighborhood tag. If I had a farm, there was a tag for my farm. It could be a tag of how you met them. Did you meet them in your farm, in your neighborhood, in your networking group, right? There's a lot of different ways that we can tag. And then the 4th question, what can you do to improve your current capture systems? Or actually it's system, not plural. The operative word there is system. What can you do to improve your current capture system?
Be more systematic.
Be more systematic. First of all, you have to have a system. Number 1. And our system that we recommend at Keller Williams is called Command. And inside of Command, you can create tags, you can put all that contact information, and you can put notes in for every single time you have an interaction with someone. So being systematic around that, Melinda, would be
Using the notes.
yeah, going in there every time you have an interaction with a client and putting your notes in, so that here's what I found is the longer you're in this business and the more you're into cultivation, where you're staying in touch with people for a lifetime business, where they're not ready to buy or sell right now, but maybe 2 years from now, they're going to be ready. If you don't have good notes, you won't remember what you guys talked about. So go inside of your Command database, and every time you have an interaction with one of the people in there, put notes in there to remind yourself of what you talked about last time, so that when you connect with them again, hopefully within a quarter, 3 months, 1 quarter, or 6 months, that you're remembering what you guys talked about last time, because you'll forget. It'll all blend together if you don't. So what can you do to improve your current capture systems? Make sure you have a system and make sure you're taking good notes. Okay, that's the section on capturing, the basics around capturing. Let me see, I've got yours in front of me. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, now we're going to move on to connecting. So connecting, we're going to move on to page 11.5 for you guys. I already talked about this a little bit. I'm going to continue to talk about it. Connecting is about laying the foundation for a working relationship. Okay. I think this is a really helpful thing to think about in real estate is you're not expecting to be best friends with everybody. You're going to create some great friendships along the way in your real estate career. It's a really great way to meet people and develop relationships. And some of those people become friends. And that's a wonderful thing about our business. But you're really in this business when we're talking about lead gen, lead follow-up, conversion, and cultivation. You're in this business as a professional. And so connecting is about laying the foundation for a working relationship. What's important during this step is to listen, ask good questions, offer solutions, and keep the focus of the conversation on them. So when you think about your connecting, and remember, I said this before, doctors do this, our mechanics do this, professionals do this, period. Every single one of them has dialogues that they use that are about the profession they're in. When you're in front of your doctor is asking you questions about you, okay? And they are doctor-related questions that helps them get to where they need to go in the conversation. Same with the mechanic, same with the hairdresser. Every single person that you're in touch with has dialogues they use that are professional that help them move along to the outcome they need. So when you think about that, what they're saying here is connection best practices. Embed your value proposition in the conversation. To me, as you continue to grow in your skills around this, that will be second nature. You're going to be able to say to people, here's how I work professionally. I work professionally by meeting with my buyers and sellers in order to understand what you're looking for. And we figure out that together to see if I'm the right fit to help best meet your needs. And that's value proposition right there, okay? The more you talk to people and explain to them how you work professionally, because it's your job to teach them that. They don't know that necessarily. They don't know how real estate agents work unless we explain it to them. Otherwise, they hear lots of things they think are true. Doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It doesn't necessarily mean it's how you work. So embed your value proposition in the conversation. Role play and practice so you get better and better. That's going from E to P, entrepreneurial to purposeful. And know the outcome you want from a conversation before starting. Use questions that lead the conversation. Again, I go back to your mechanic is going to ask you what brings you in here today. And you're going to explain to them something is making a clicking noise in the engine or the tire or whatever's going on. They're asking you a question so that they can get to where they need to go to help you. Doctor does the same thing. Every professional that you talk to is going to ask what brings you here today so that they can help move in the direction of best meeting your needs. That makes sense? Okay. They have a lot of examples of this in the next page in your handout. Actually, before I go any further, on 11.5, I just wanted, these core principles are really important. Connect is about laying the foundation for a working relationship. In this step, it is important to listen, ask good questions, offer solutions, and keep the focus of the conversation on them. I know I said it before, it's important to say it again. And so in the next page, on 11.6 in your handout, it has the 6 connection questions. Who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? Whenever we do anything, we're putting on an event. Whenever I'm working with my team on making sure that we're putting events on for you or posting the classes we have going on, I always ask them, make sure that you answer the basic questions, which are who, what, where, when, why, and how. If we've answered all those, then we have all of the information right. It's the same thing that you're doing when you're meeting clients that may become buyers or sellers. Who are they? What do they want or need? Where do they want or need to do it? Why do they want or need to do it? When and how? And on 11.6, it has some great examples of how you get to that. So let's go back to our open house example. You're in an open house and people come in and you're actually engaging in conversation. You're building some rapport. They're asking you some questions. Ask them, what brings you in here today? Tell me a little bit more about what you're thinking about or what your needs are. And then you're going to learn from them some information that guides you, whether they're a buyer or a seller. And then from there, you get to lead the conversation one way or another. This is also super important when you're doing your buyer presentations and your listing presentations. You already know they're a buyer or seller, but you're going to get to know them better by asking questions like this. And they have some great examples in your handout of how to ask the questions. So you start with who are they, and you're like, okay, well, how do I ask that? Well, here's some examples. Back up. This is how you would say it as a dialogue. Back up, if you would, please tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me why you're here. Does that make sense? And then it moves on to what do they need from us? Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate getting to know you a little bit better. Now, if you'd please tell me what it is you're looking for. What is it you want? So each question is going to guide you to getting more information from them. Does that make sense? Any questions around that or thoughts? Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Practice it. I used to bring this kind of stuff with me to open houses so that during the times where it wasn't busy, I was practicing. If you're going to be there, show up, be professional, go from entrepreneurial to purposeful, use your time to practice if there's not a lot of people showing up. Practice your skills. You're already signed up to work during that time, get the most out of it. The next page, it goes on to talk about, I don't know if this moved. Oh, maybe it did move. Okay. It goes on to talk on 11.7 about connection questions for buyers and sellers, which is really great. It's still who, what, where, when, why, and how, but it turns it into buyer-related questions and seller-related questions. Super good stuff on here. What are you looking for in your dream home? This is for buyers. What happens if you can't find a house to buy? Have you seen any houses you like? I go on to tell me, what your time frames are. When are you hoping to find that home by? When are you hoping to be able to be in your new home? So you're learning information about them. And then there's sample seller questions too. Okay. Lots of good stuff in there. Any questions so far? Really good, helpful information on 11.6 and 11.7. Okay, on 11.7, I want to read one more thing about the buyer and seller part. Be sure to document conversations and their outcomes in your database, which is command, immediately after talking to the potential buyer or seller. Keeping a strong, well-documented record of communication will help you know how to move the relationship forward, how to come from contribution in the future, and help you assess how to prioritize the lead. So in an open house, if you're meeting people, write some notes down right there. You do have command on your phone, so you can put notes into command right there. If you're busy though, interacting with people, write a few notes down so that you have notes that you can enter into command later. Or if you're out door knocking or at networking events, just make sure you're writing notes down so that you can sit down later and put some information into command, okay? Again, keeping a strong, well-documented record of communication will help you know how to move the relationship forward. It's really important to document all that information. Thoughts so far on that? Good basic stuff that, again, if you practice it, you become purposeful. All right, now we're moving on to cultivate. So they're talking about cultivate before they talk about close. So remember, it's not highlighted here, but first part is to capture, second part is to connect, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about cultivation. I always used to teach lead follow-up and lead cultivation is the same thing. They do go hand in hand. Lead follow-up tends to be more about following up with actual buyers and sellers and making sure you're staying in touch with them. Lead cultivation, which we're now moving on to 11.8, is really about those people who tell you, we're not ready right now. Melinda, you talked about some of your tags are 0 to 3 months. Those are your ready, willing, and able buyers and sellers, clients. 3 to 6 months, 6+ months. If people aren't ready, remember, you're in a real estate business for a lifetime. And compared to your dentist, which hopefully you go see every 6 months, your doctor at least once a year, mechanic probably once a year, that kind of thing. You're in a relationship with them where your emotional proximity to them is closer. We need to talk about that law of emotional proximity. With real estate, people may not buy or sell every single year unless they're an investor and you're working with some investors. The average, I think, is around 8 years right now in the United States of when people buy and sell real estate. So 8 years. That means that you need to cultivate a relationship with them where they don't forget you, where you stay in the law of emotional proximity with them, and you stay top of mind with them. So since I brought that up right now, I want to talk about the law of emotional proximity a little bit. So it's actually a real thing. And here's the definition of it. The law of emotional proximity describes how the human eye perceives connections between visual elements. Elements that are close to each other are perceived to be related when compared with elements that are separate from each other. Okay, that was all textbook. Another way to look at it is the tendency for individuals to form interpersonal relations with those who are close by. Okay, so I'm going to give you a life example of that. Let's say you're shopping and you go to Nordstrom's and you walk into the Nordstrom store, whatever store, I'm just picking that one. And there's a person greeting you at the front door. Hey, welcome in today. How can I help you? Is there anything I can help you with? And your response is usually, thanks, I'm just looking, right? That's what we all usually say. And they say back to you, great, let me know if there's anything I can help you with. You walk into the store, it's a pretty big department store. You're in the middle of the store, you're in the shoe section, for example, and you need help getting a certain size or color. And so you turn and look, do you go back to the person at the front of the store who said, great, if there's anything I can help you with, let me know. Or do you find the person that's closest to you to help you find the right shoe size? No, we don't go back to the person at the front of the store. We find the person who's closest to us. That's the law of emotional proximity, as an example. In real estate, what that means is people are going to look for the realtor they're closest to. And so if you cultivate a relationship where you're staying in touch with people and you're staying top of mind through an 8-year time span on average, they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, we need your help when they need your help. Okay. There's a way to draw this, and I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys, I'm going to turn this just a little bit this way. This is a way to draw a law of emotional proximity that'll help you think about it a little bit better. I'm going to do a bell curve. Okay. We've got a client that we start with here. You guys, can they see it? Yeah, I think so. I'm not in the way. And they close escrow here. So you've worked with them all along the way. And then, ta-da, you closed. Everybody's happy. They then immediately go back down here. Okay. And most real estate agents are looking for someone right here to connect with. Meet someone at an open house. They're already starting to look. They're already thinking about looking. And you want to connect with them right here in that sort of 0 to 3 months time period so that you can close here. In a lifetime business, when people get down to here, you're going to be staying in touch with them all along the way so that when they are in this 0 to 3 months, you're the one they're thinking of. And they don't walk into an open house and talk to an agent they just met and decide to work with that person. They're saying, no, I've got an agent who's been staying in touch with me all along the way. They've developed value to me. They've given me information. And that's the person I'm loyal to and I'm going to stay in touch with. So if you're working in a real estate business for a lifetime business, the law of emotional proximity is so important to the cultivation part, because you're cultivating relationships for a lifetime, not just a transactional relationship, which is a 0 to 3 month relationship. We all need to pay our bills. So we all need the 0 to 3 month relationships. And if you meet someone at an open house and you hit it off and they decide to work with you, by all means, work with them. And to create a lifetime purposeful business, you want to stay in touch with people all along the way. And that's where cultivation happens, so that you are working on cultivating relationships and what we call having touch campaigns throughout the 8 years or whatever it is. Okay. So, let's see. I want to read a couple things from this. Your goal is using the lead conversion model is to move immediately from up here to capture, to connect, to close. However, you will find small percentage of leads that won't be ready to convert to an appointment right away. To keep mind share top of the mind, you will use a touch campaign to stay in communication and cultivate the relationship until they're ready for an appointment, till they say to you, we are ready to buy or sell. In Ignite, you have learned a lot about touch campaigns, 19 to connect, 1 to cement, and 36 to convert. You will leverage these to stay in close contact until you get to an appointment. You guys, I have to say this. Again, I've shared this story with people. When I started in real estate 22 years ago, I didn't start with this company. I didn't take Ignite when I first started. I didn't have a class like Ignite. So I had to figure out a lot of things on my own, okay? And there were definitely some people in my world that helped guide me. But it wasn't until I became a part of Keller Williams 13 years into my career that I learned about Ignite and I learned about touch campaigns. And I will tell you this, if I had sat down at the beginning and someone handed me a 19 to, or that's over here, 19 to connect, 1 to cement, and 36 to convert plan, and I just put that into practice, we're giving it to you guys. You follow it, use it, put it into practice. Don't make it more complicated. Now, when people become buyers and sellers, you're going to do some different plans with them. But if we're just talking about cultivation until someone's ready, for the 8 years until they're ready, you're going to put them on a 36 touch plan and you're going to stay in touch with them. And we've given you the blueprint for that. So use it. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me ask this question. Why do agents struggle in the cultivation stage?
They don't know what to give them.
They don't know what to give them, and what is that what you're saying too?
Well, and
Melinda?
just not wanting to annoy them with these 36 touches if they're
You-
not ready.
Do you feel like you're annoying them?
maybe, yeah,
Okay. So that's in what your head is telling you.
right.
Okay, so let's just really quick read what it says. You can't know or predict when they will come to a decision, but if you're reconnecting with them and in a systematic, I like to say systematic professional way, you'll have a great chance of being there when they do. That's when you'll be able to close for an appointment. That's the law of emotional proximity. That if you're reconnecting with them in a systematic way, you'll have a better chance of being the one that they choose. Okay. So why do you think agents struggle in the cultivation stage? You guys answered it. You're afraid you're bugging them and you're not quite sure what to say. So agents often struggle during cultivation because they do not have the right systems in place to continue to follow up with that lead. They let the lead slip and then get disappointed when they learn that the lead transacted with a different agent. You shouldn't let the lead slide to someone else, especially when you have invested a lot of time, money, energy. So don't let it go to waste. Okay, if people think you're bugging them, they're just not ready yet. They're a not yet. And in a 36 touch plan, really, you're not bugging them. You're not saying, are you ready? Are you ready? You're just staying in touch. You're providing items of value, valuable information. And all it's doing is reminding them that you're here. Okay, the reticular activator is going to kick in when they are looking to buy or sell. And that's when the emotional proximity also kicks in and they think, oh, now I need a real estate agent. Who am I going to use? And if you've been staying in touch with them, they're going to more likely think of you because you're in closer proximity. So the two questions are great. You don't quite know what to say or to do for the 36 times, or you think you're bugging them. I promise you, you're not bugging them. You're You think about real estate every day, but that doesn't mean they are. You might be thinking about them almost every day, but that doesn't mean they're thinking about you every day. So you're not bugging them. And if you are, you're not the right fit. Move on and work with someone else.
Your example of the store where the clerk says,
Yeah.
if there's anything you need help with. I just wrote notes in my book, Home Depot, because every time you go in the door of Home Depot, there's usually someone to greet you. But then when you really need someone to ask a question, you can look for days and never find a single orange apron in there. So, yeah, I think that staying on their top of mind, right? That orange apron. That's really within close proximity.
And you don't want somebody following you around the store. That would be bugging you.
Yeah.
Right. But if someone were on each aisle, for example, that you walk down, if someone at the end of the aisle said, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Might be more helpful.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and that would be, if you look at that example, hi Steve, if you look at that example, that would be staying in touch. If someone was at the end of each aisle and said, is there anything I can help you with? It'd be a systematic way of staying in touch in that store, right? So 36 touch, we talk about it. You have lots of information around it. And that's where I would go. I would use that. 36 touch is 3 times a month. And you're going to do that in different ways. Some of that's going to be a phone call. Some of that's going to be emails, text messages, sending information, an e-report, an e-newsletter. It might be some client events throughout the year. It is a mixture of all of those things. And what's great about an abundant business plan or a purposeful business plan is by doing those types of things, you're going to stay in touch with the right amount of people for you to have the life that you want to have. Okay. You don't have to be the real estate agent for everybody. There's lots of real estate agents out there for lots of different kinds of people. If you stay in touch with the right people in the right formula, you're going to stay in touch with enough people to fund the business that you need to live the life you want. Does that make sense? All right, let me make sure I covered everything I want to cover on this part. So we talked about cultivate, talked about 36 touch. Okay. Now on 11.9 is when they go to close. So again, really what we're hoping for in the law of emotional proximity is that you capture, you connect, and you close. That's really playing that game of the 0 to 3 months. We know that in practice, it can take some people a lot longer. It can be 6 months out, 1 year out, 2 years out, 8 years out. So when we actually get to the point where we've captured, we've connected, we've cultivated, and now they've said, yes, I want to work with you. I want to be a buyer or a seller for you. That's when we start closing. And I always say that it's not just one close at the end, it's closings along the way. It's closing to the next appointment or next task, next thing that you're going to do together or do for them. So think of the mindset of where do I need to go next? The next thing is a close. Where do I need to go next? The next thing is a close. Does that make sense? And in doing so, here's what they say here. Closing is when you ask for an appointment, or to me, it's when you ask for the next thing that's going to happen. Think of it in this framework. You are concluding one conversation and seeing if there is a new one that needs to take place. It's your responsibility to ask for the appointment or to move it forward. That's being professional. If you called your mechanic on the phone and you told them about the noise in the car, they are going to say, well, we need to schedule an appointment so that we can listen to the noise and we can figure out what's going on. They're closing to an appointment, right? You call the doctor and something's going on, probably more than just let's just say a sore throat. They're probably going to say, well, I need to see you so that I can take a look at what's going on and figure out if it's bacterial or virus, and I might need to take a throat culture, that kind of thing. They're going to close to the next thing that needs to happen. Every professional does this. Real estate agents need to do this too. So for example, let's go back to our open house example. If someone walks in, you're first going to say, thank you for coming in today. What brings you here today? When you ask that question, you're figuring out if they're a potential buyer or potential seller, because they may be coming here today because they're looking to buy. They may be coming there today because they own a house in the neighborhood and they want to compare this house to their house and see how the activity is. They're also interviewing you to see what kind of listing agent you might be. So when you ask that question and then you ascertain whether they're a buyer or a seller, you're then going to say, great, and here's how I work with my buyers. And you're going to explain to them what you do to help buyers be prepared for the process. And you're going to say the next logical step is for us to set a meeting so that I can sit down with you and go over my buyer plan, explain to you how I work, and learn more about what your needs are. You're closing for an appointment. Same with the seller. You're going to say, well, great. The way I work with my sellers is I like to set up a time to meet with you to take a look at your home, learn more about your house, what your time frame needs are, and show you what I do to go ahead and go to work for you and market your home. You're closing for an appointment. All along the way, you're going to be moving the dial to the next thing that happens. Those are the closings along the way. Another example I'll give you of that, I like to go back to this example. My hairdresser that I went to many, like for years before I moved here. Every time I walked in, she had this little set of business cards in one of those business card holders. And she had different realtors that she cut their hair. And I would walk in and she would have just cut another realtor's hair. And she would move my card in front of that realtor's card and put mine at the front. So, you know, she's doing that for every single business owner that comes in. She's putting their card to the front. And as we were talking, we saw each other every couple of months. I found out that they were thinking about moving to Hawaii and thinking about selling their home. And so instead of just waiting for them to actually be ready to set a meeting with me, I started doing closings along the way. And I started providing them with information that I felt a seller would need to start learning about the market. So market updates, information, little snippets of information about what I did to help people sell their home. And I'm going to say it was like February when I found this out. And we listed the home in July. So I had about 6 months of staying in touch with them in a systematic, professional way. So they kept thinking about me. All right. I got a call from them in June and they said, hey, we're ready to sell our home and we want to sit down and meet with you. And at that point, they let me know they were interviewing different people. But I had continued to give them snippets of information to prep them for how I work as a professional. When I finally sat down with them at the table the night and I was ready to do my full presentation, because I treat everybody as a professional, I want them to see me as a professional. I was going to do my full presentation. They said to me, Laura, we've already made the decision that we're going to go with you. We just wanted to let you know that. So I had gone from a possibility of many business cards that real estate agents that they were talking to when I finally sat down with them at the table after giving them little bits of information, they were already ready to sign with me. And all we had to do was talk a little bit about what the marketing was going to look like, about what their time frames were going to look like, and decide on what the listing price was going to be.
Question.
Yeah.
With that example, were you systematically feeding them bits of information using command and contacts and all that, or were you doing it by writing them personal emails and including, because I would tend to do method B. I would probably write little personal emails all the time, and that would take up an extreme amount of time, which would be worth it if it does turn into.
Well, it didn't take up an extreme amount of time because it wasn't like I was doing it every single day.
Oh.
But so the answer is B. I recorded everything I did inside of Command.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing I did was I started to do market snapshots for them. I dropped that off. Mm-hmm. I popped by and left that for her in a nice packet so that she could take it home and look at it with her husband. And I think then we got, I don't know that I had her email address, or I'm not even sure even she had an email address. I think I ended up using her husband's email address. And so then there was some stuff I emailed them, but I just used it as an opportunity for every month. I gave them a little something so they kept thinking about me as a listing agent. Right. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't every single day, but it was continuing to check in with them. Okay. So those were closings along the way, got me a little further to the point where I got to the table with them. We signed paperwork, which is also a closing. For every closing, there's a new beginning. So you sign a contract and now you start the next process, which for a listing is getting the property prepped and ready to go on the market. All right, the question here is, when asking for the appointment, which format do you think is most effective? A, B, C, or D? Text message, email, phone call, or in person?
In person?
I think so. I absolutely think it's in person. The least effective options are in writing, text messages, emails, etc. Since you are not communicating together in real time, you cannot immediately respond to any issue or question that you might have. When you're actually talking to someone, you're going to talk to them about when are they available, when's the best time to meet, and is everyone going to be there, without having to go back and forth with text or email back and forth. Are they answering me right away? Is it going to take a day for me to answer, for them to answer me? In person or on the phone, you can actually ask all the questions you need to gather to make sure that you're setting the appointment. Who else is going to be there? What time works best for you? Are there any questions you have ahead of time? Here are the things I need you to prep for before I show up. So you're going to be able to ask all of that if you can actually do that, in person with someone, or on the phone or in person with someone. Does that make sense? I had a realtor in one of my previous offices that she did a whole transaction, believe it or not, on Facebook Messenger with a client. So the only way that client would communicate with her was Facebook Messenger. And they did a transaction that blows my mind. It wasn't, I'm not saying it was easy, but they did it. Much easier if you could actually talk to somebody. All right. Any thoughts on that one? Any questions? You guys are on 11.9. It also has some really great information on 11.9, where it talks about the different types of closes. There's 10 of them. Let me just read what it says on 11.9. Closing is when you ask for the appointment. You're concluding one conversation and seeing if there is a new one that can take place. Your closings along the way, you're moving to the next step. It's your responsibility to ask for the closing or the appointment or the next step. And then it asks you, I think there's a typo there. It should say, what will you confirm for the appointment? In other words, who will be there? What time works best for them? Explain how long the appointment should last. So if in your mind, you're thinking, well, I need a solid hour with you, and they're thinking 15 minutes, that you guys are making sure it's an hour's worth of time. All those different things are the things you're going to be confirming for the appointment. Anything else you can think of, Melinda? Location, yeah. We're going to meet. It's better to either meet at their home or meet in the office versus a busy, loud coffee shop where it's not private, and they might be less likely to give you information that you need because they feel like people are listening. So you wanted a professional location. And then at the bottom of this page, or 2/3 of this page, it says different ways to ask for the close. The hard close, soft close, direct close, indirect close. There's 10 different types of closes. And you're going to find that there's a few that fit with your personality style. So read through all of them and get, this is another thing to take with you to practice, so that you can figure out which styles work the best for you. It's also the styles that work best for the client that you're working with. Sometimes that's the mirror and matching. If you have a client that's very direct, then you want a hard close with them. Great, let's meet. They don't need a soft close. They want to move on. Okay, next up. In the end, if they can meet and have good enough reason to meet, they will meet. And if they don't, they won't. And that's okay. You really don't care what their answer ultimately is, because you are not getting people to do anything they don't want to do. You can't make people buy or sell a house. You can't make them, right? You're just going to ask and respond until they agree that meeting with you makes sense, or it doesn't. Either way, both of you win. Either way, you both win, right? So then it goes on to page 11.10, and it talks about our Keller-Williams belief system, which is our Y, 4C, 2 T's. WI, 4C, CCCC, TTES. And there's those 10 of them: win-win, integrity, customers, commitment, communication, creativity, teamwork, trust, and success. When you think about this statement, You're just going to ask or respond until they agree that meeting with you makes sense, or it doesn't. Either way, you both win. Which one of these core principles in the belief system does that fit? There's more than one.
It kind of makes the win-win or no deal.
Yeah, it does. Win-win or no deal. It also is integrity, doing the right thing. Customers always come first. You're meeting their needs first. So a lot of these different principles in our belief system fit with this statement. Any thoughts so far on that?
We have difficulty with failure and rejection, but we should see it as a positive because it lets us go on to the next ready, willing, and able. Right.
Yeah, I love that. It's not really rejection. They're just not ready yet. It's just a not yet. Most no's in our profession aren't really a no. They're a not yet. We're just not ready yet. And the more people you can get in front of, the more opportunity for a yes. And then you just keep moving the no's to the not yet category. If you're in this for a lifetime business, then at some point they're going to be ready. And if you've stayed in touch with them in a systematic and professional way, you're most likely to be the agent they're going to work with because of that law of emotional proximity. All right, the last thing that we're going to talk about today is improving our conversion rates. This is also going from entrepreneurial to purposeful. We want you to have better conversion rates. So if you're looking at page 11.11, it talks about improving your conversion rates. So I want to read a couple things to you. Your conversion rates refer to the percentage of leads you ask for an appointment to those that agree to the appointment. So the percentages of asks to the percentages that agree to meet with you. For example, you may ask 10 leads for an appointment and succeed in setting 8 appointments. That's an 80% conversion rate. Your ultimate goal is to increase your skill so that you can convert at the highest percentage possible. The higher the percentage, the more leads have converted to an appointment. If you are converting at a low percentage, this should tell you that you have a lead conversion challenge. The challenge is not the number of leads generated, but your ability to get them to an appointment. Sometimes the lead conversion is based on your total number of leads in your database. Sometimes it's based just on the leads that are being cultivated at a current time. What is important to evaluate in your business and what works for you, and then repeat that same measure of success each time you calculate your conversion rate. So I think this is a really key part. This again is going from entrepreneurial, novice or rookie to purposeful, which means you're a business owner. Typically, what I find when I'm working with agents is there's one of two problems going on. Either one, they're not generating enough leads, or two, they're not converting enough of them to an appointment. So first question you have to ask yourself is, am I doing enough lead generation to get to the amount of leads that I can then ask to move along and get to the appointment? Okay, so it actually asks you on page 11.11 some questions. Part 1, ask yourself, how many new people, and I think this means, do you meet a week? I'm not sure why it says make. That's weird. So I crossed it out and put meet.
How many making people 27 years ago?
Little typo, I think. How many new people do you meet a week? How many new people do you meet? How many of those meet your definition of a lead? How many of those leads become appointments? And how many appointments get turned into signed contracts? You're signing contracts with a buyer and a seller to actually go to work with you. So again, how many new people do you meet a week? I would add to that, or how many people in your sphere of influence are you staying in touch with a week to ask for repeat or referral business? How many of those meet your definition of a lead? Even in your sphere of influence, not every single person is a lead, not at least right now lead. They can be a lead in the future. How many of those leads become appointments, and then how many appointments are turned into signed contracts? Those are the things that we're converting to if we're making ourselves become a business owner that's purposeful. Part 2, it says use the equations below and the number from part 1 to complete the calculations below. So you're gonna you're gonna put how many new people do you meet a week? In number one, and then how many of those meet your definition of a lead? So let's just say you're in contact with 50 people a week, which is 10 a day for 5 days, 10 different people for part A, you're going to say 50. And then part B, how many of those meet your definition of a lead? Let's just say 10 of them, 10 out of 50. So you're going to put that in. And so that would be 10 divided by 50 times 100. What is that? 2%? Did I do that right? I'm so bad at math. I don't have I don't have my calculator with me.
10 divided by 50
Times 100.
20%.
20%, 0.2. Did I say? But hey, 20%. Thank you. And then see how many of those leads become appointments. So then you're going to put C in there. So of the leads, you got 10 leads. Let's say you got, of those 10 leads, let's give you 80% on that one. 8 of them became an appointment. So you're going to say 8 out of 10 times 100 is 80%. That one was easy math. And then in number 3, how many appointments signed contracts? So of C, you had 8 appointments, and D, let's say of the 8 appointments, 6 of them signed a contract. What's the math on that one?
Oh,
Like
boy.
66%. So it's 6 divided by 8 times 100.
I think it's 75%.
75%. Thank you. Thank you for calculators. So do that math. I hope I didn't confuse you too much, but you can follow along on this page and do the math. The higher your percentages are, the better you're converting. If you're not converting very well, typically that's, again, are you lead generating enough, or are you converting enough? Are you focusing on your skills? So this is going to talk to you next about focusing on your skills. And the way to improve your conversion rates, which is 11.12 in your handout, are to think about these 3 things: time blocking, use systems and conversations, connect with your entire database, and prioritize qualified leads. Okay, why is time blocking important?
Because that's the only way you're going to connect with enough people.
Well, time blocking is, the way I would say that one, Melinda, is you time block those things in your life that are the most important to do. And if you're time blocking your lead generation time, you're saying that in your business, that's purposeful and it's the most important part of your business, versus it just being entrepreneurial. Oh, I'll just do it when I have time to do it. If you actually schedule it in your calendar, time blocking means you schedule it, you put it in your calendar each day, and you actually do the activities for lead generation, which when you do an open house, you schedule that in your calendar. I actually like to ask this question: why do you think most new real estate agents like to do open houses?
To meet new people.
To meet new people. That's one reason. What I think about that one is, to me, that one feels the most like a real job to them. When they schedule an open house and they actually put it in their calendar, it feels like they're showing up for work. There's a start time to the open house. There's an end time to the open house. It's like clocking in and clocking out. And, an hour before the open house, you're showing up, you're getting the house ready, you're putting your open house signs out. You may show up 2 hours before and door knock some of the doors in the neighborhood. There's an end time where you're taking your signs down and you're writing all your notes into command. But it feels like a day's worth of work. You showed up, you went to work, you accomplished certain things. So to me, I feel like a lot of times brand new agents gravitate towards open houses as the thing that they know they're going to do every week, because it feels the most like a job. How do we make the rest of the days of the week, besides the ones that you actually do take off, how do we make the days that look like a job, that look like actual work, feel like work? We do that by time blocking certain things so that you show up for those things just like you do with an open house. So if you're time blocking for lead generation 5 days a week, which we highly recommend, then you're going to put that in your calendar and you're going to show up for it. just like you would do any other job. And you're going to do the activities during that time blocking that are purposeful. Okay, does that make sense?
Mhm.
That's why time blocking is important. Use systems and conversations. Why are systems important? Why are conversations or dialogues important?
Systems for follow-up.
Yeah, when you're using your systems and you're putting notes in command and making sure that you have notes on every single person, you know the best way to move along with that person and follow up. And dialogues and conversations, why would we practice those? Thank you for being my guinea pig today. You're answering all the questions.
To get better at it.
To get better at it. When you meet with a doctor, they have certain things they say every single time. Your mechanic has certain things they say. Your mechanic's not asking you how your elbow feels, okay? The doctor's not asking you how your tire feels, right? Those are the doctor's asking specific things about your body. They ask the same things every time you go in. They take your measurements, they weigh you, all that stuff. Those are their dialogues and scripts that they're doing every time. And we're going to be doing the same thing in our profession. As a real estate agent, we're not going to be asking people how their elbow feels or how their tire is. We're going to be asking them about their dreams for the future and owning, buying, selling, and investing in real estate. So those are the conversations we need to get good at. Why would you connect with your whole database? This one is really important for me because there were times when I wouldn't focus on the whole database. I would just focus on key people that I felt more comfortable with. But there were nuggets in there I was missing. So if as a business professional, I showed up as purposeful versus entrepreneurial, and I stayed in touch with every single person in my database, maybe some of them I didn't stay in touch with as frequently as I did the ones I was closest to, but everyone in your database has the opportunity in the future of buying or selling real estate, every single one of them. So don't neglect any of them because there may be a gold nugget in there that you're missing. And if you're missing it, that means another realtor's in front of them and they're going to get the gold nugget. There was an agent that was a high producing agent in my past during my real estate career. And he said to me once, he would get up every morning and look at his computer and know that his next gold nugget was in there somewhere. And he said it's that they're in my computer somewhere. What he meant was they were in his database and he was going to get in touch and continue to stay in touch with every single person in his database until he found the next gold nugget. I'll never forget that. I always thought that was really important. And then number 4, you're prioritizing the qualified leads. Don't chase somebody who's not qualified. If they're just a not yet, they're not ready, willing, and able yet, focus on the ones who are a right now versus a not yet. You're going to do your 36 touch campaign with everybody for that cultivation for the long haul, so that when they are ready, you're the one they think of. But we also need to pay our bills now, so we want to focus on those leads who are ready now. So that's what prioritized qualified leads mean. All right, so I want to read this one part about this that I think is really key. In terms of improving conversion rates and focusing on these 4 things. Once you understand what your conversion rate is, which was the practice we just did on the previous page, you can move from E to P, entrepreneurial to purposeful. This is when you get more purposeful in improving your conversion rate. Gaining insight and getting more purposeful will ultimately bring you more closed transactions. Some activities you can engage in to improve your conversion rate might be, and that's when they go into this, time blocking, using systems and conversations, connecting with your entire database and prioritizing leads. Okay, I talked about that. Every lead has the potential to turn into a business. And as you have heard, there are no bad leads. With the lead conversion model, you have learned to capture the appropriate information so you connect with as many leads as possible, to connect to assess their needs and then establish a relationship, to cultivate the relationship, and to close by asking for the appointment or asking for the next step in the process. That's this whole thing. Capture the appropriate information, connect to assess the needs, cultivate to develop the relationship, and close to move it along. That's it. That's the process. Any ahas so far on that? Okay, to wrap up, do you have any ahas? Anything else you want to add on this, Melinda?
Just the need to improve my conversion rate.
Do you have a question on it, or is it
No.
something that was key that you were thinking about?
Just. No, I don't have a question about it. That's just where I'm focusing my effort, I guess.
Yeah, where you're at in your E to P process. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think that's awesome. And what I would say about that is, I think anybody who's trying to become a professional real estate agent, a professional business owner, looks at their conversion rate. So it's great that you're focusing on that and spending time on that. Because I'm trying to get you to understand the difference. The people who aren't focusing on that, Melinda, are not trying to be a professional business owner. Does that make sense? So you should pat yourself on the back because you are focusing on having better conversion rates. It's really important. So that's pretty much wrapping it up for today. I just want to remind you that through Ignite, we have 2 hours-ish of instruction. We're ending in about an hour and a half today. We have 2 hours of instruction, and then it's recommended that you have 2 hours of follow-up afterwards. So let me just show you what that should look like. I have it open right here. Okay, let me just show you this. So if you look at the Ignite daily schedule, let me share my screen so that it captures on the recording. We have 2 hours of class time from 9 to 11, and then we have a 2-hour daily success system comprised of business building and lead generation components each day. So it's recommended that you attend class from 9 to 11, and then from 11 to 1, you spend 2 hours in your business, role playing, calling people, having conversations, doing handwritten notes, doing social media engagement, going on appointments, getting to agreements, and getting to a closings. They also talk about these enrichment practices that you can include as well. And there's lots of enrichment examples that help you get the basics done in your business. So that's the recommended reminder that you should be spending 2 hours a day doing that as well. Are there any last questions before we end for today? Anything, since you have Laura in front of you, that you want to know?
Nope, I think
You're good
on this list.
All right, awesome. Thanks for joining me. Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you. Let me go ahead and end.